It seems like gamers are always playing the role of the fool, especially to non-gamers, actors, and nowadays game developers, where they always look at gamers as the people that will be out there, always available with infinite money to purchase their games, even while they're mocking them. And that's what we're seeing here by Tati Gabriel, who's starring in the new Naughty Dog game, Intergalactic, coming on the heels of the massively controversial Last of Us 2. And you would think there would be some perspective within Naughty Dog about some of the failures and some of the misguidance that they have seen from the Last of Us franchise. Because the Last of Us franchise, even though it's highly successful, it's been under criticism these past few years, whether it's the game or the TV show. And I think we expected some inner perspective to be developed from Naughty Dog Studios. And of course, we haven't seen that come out from the developers themselves, but it's reflective of what we usually see from game developers, a response from the actress Tati Gabriel, where she said, the gamers may be complaining about the game itself, what they might see me as an actress look like, because they think that it won't be a game they would like to play, but they'll be back. They'll play any game that I'm in because they're gamers. They have nothing else to do with their lives. And that's what she basically said in an interview to gamers. And it's kind of frustrating because this is a sentiment that we've been seeing all throughout the video gaming industry. It's not limited to Tati Gabriel, because this mindset is wrecking the entire gaming industry. There's real examples out there of legacy franchises that straight up disrespect the video gaming audience, not caring about their perspective on certain things and not caring about the future of their own franchise, because they just have it built into their mind that gamers will always be there, they'll support them, and they'll take anything that they want them to take in as content. And I think this is the thing that we're seeing right now happen specifically with Naughty Dog and all the properties that they're putting out there. It feels like they just don't care what the gamers want, and they think they'll accept anything that they give them. And I think we have to start off with Tati Gabriel herself, because she's just everywhere, this actress. She's everywhere. We see her in most of the content, especially anything related to Naughty Dog. She was in The Last of Us Season 2. She's in the new Mortal Kombat, still looking exactly the same with a bald head, which is a frustrating thing when you compare it to her model within the Mortal Kombat game. But I think this is the thing that we have a problem with this actress in particular, because she embodies everything we've been seeing in the video gaming industry for these past few years. This arrogant, progressive mindset where it kind of looks down on the gamers, saying you'll play whatever game we give you because you're a gamer, you don't know anything else, so you're going to just play it and accept whatever content and political ideology or California ideology that we want to put into the game. You'll accept it because that's who you are. You're a gamer. And I think this is what we see within the interview itself. You can just look at and see her demeanor. It kind of reflects what you've been seeing from a lot of people that have been making video games these past few years.
And so to know that there was so much hatred, so much backlash, it was hurtful. So in that way, I took the hurt, I swallowed it, and I turned it into fire. And I feel like those same people that were hating are gonna play that game, and guess what? They're gonna love it. So they can be mad.
And I know people are going to say, maybe she's just saying that she's going to actually prove them wrong with her acting or anything like that. But I think we're far past that situation, especially with her previous posts about gamers complaining about her look in the game. Because I think that's the thing that we saw from a lot of gamers complaining like, well, who is this bald chick? This is the thing that we always see in gaming. This progressive trend to remove any sense of femininity from a lot of the characters in gaming, and this is another step in that direction. Of course, she posted a meme online with the Witcher character, kind of just saying, we're gonna drink the tears of gamers, it doesn't matter, we're doing great, we don't care about your masculinity. And that's kind of the thing that we've been seeing all throughout the gaming industry when it comes to this sort of content, where it's just hyper focused on kind of defanging and removing all the essence and masculinity in a lot of the titles that have been coming out for these past few years. And I think this is what we've been seeing with titles like Intergalactic, where it just feels like it's completely removed from actual content that the majority game players are interested in even looking at. And I think that's the thing that we've been seeing with Tati Gabriel within Intergalactic. And I think we have to go over Intergalactic itself, what the game is specifically. It's coming from Naughty Dog after the long-awaited Last of Us 2 is released. This is the next game in line. It's called Intergalactic Heretic Prophet. Tati Gabriel is the actress that I just showed you. She's playing a character named Jordan A. Munn, a bounty hunter in a sci-fi adventure. The game was announced in December 2024 with a reveal trailer that, well, let's just say it didn't really land that well with gamers. On PlayStation's YouTube, it racked up over 246,000 dislikes. And I showed you that earlier. People just weren't really interested in the content of this game. I mean, just compare that to the 96,000 likes. It just shows you that there isn't that much interest in this type of content that is trying to be blatantly obviously with the agenda at the forefront of the game that they're trying to produce. And I know what you're thinking. What agenda are you talking about? I'm talking about the agenda we've been seeing in most games. Concord, Flintlock, Kill the Justice League, all this content that's been hyper focused on values that have nothing to do with gaming, that are more focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, female representation, things that really are not the focus of gaming. The focus of game has always been fun, idealistic fantasy, adventure, things that take you away from reality. But that is not the case with the modern day gaming world, where gaming is trying to bring you into the calming California political sphere of thinking. And I think that's the thing that we saw with most titles that have come out nowadays, where they're focused on bringing these inclusivity elements at the forefront, where it's about LGBTQ rights, it's about body positivity, it's about defeminization and ableism, it's about these political concepts that are there to influence your mindset in the next election. And I think this is the thing that we saw with consultancy firms like Sweet Baby Inc., where their main focus is to bring in the gamer base to be focused on these concepts that they want them to accept because they're of a political mindset. They want these gamers to be only focused on the things that they want them to believe in rather than the experience and the fun content that gamers are there for. And I think it breaks down to the response that we saw from Tati Gabriel about the post, where it's about your fragile masculinity, where masculinity is mostly demonized now with this modern day progressive mindset. It's seen as aggressive, poisonous, and toxic. And I think that's the thing that they see as something they need to remove from gaming. And at the same time, they see masculinity as toxic. They see it as the only point of power. So that's why most women in video games have to be masculinized, where they have to look like a bald-headed drug dealer to be seen as someone that's powerful. I think that's the thing that we see here with this game, where it's just masculinity with a shade of a feminine aura. And I think that's the thing that we see here, where it's just like, okay, you hate masculinity, but you want to cosplay it on women. The cosplaying of masculinity is just boring after a while, especially when you repeat it all throughout the genre for the past 10 years. And this is what we see with a lot of the character designs that have been coming out for the past 10 years, where you can make a giant collage of these over masculinized characters, where it's just like, okay, I'm tired of seeing them. Can I just see a regular woman for once? And I think this is the thing that gamers have a frustration with this sort of game. And that's what we're seeing right now as a response to her recent comments. Fast forward to August 2025, she's at it again in an interview. Tati addressed the hate comments from gamers. She says that the same people that were hating are going to play that game, and guess what? They're going to love it, so they can just be mad. She even said that the backlash motivated her to go even harder on the project and claim that critics are just racist, sexist, and misogynistic. Neil Druckmann, Naughty Dog's head, has been boot camping her on the handling of this, drawing The Last of Us Part 2's drama as a wealth of experience for her to actually practice from. And I think this is where we have that mindset where the studio is thinking the same thing. The reason why she's talking like this, because the studio is like this. The studio is as ignorant as to what the fan base actually wants and actually is interested in. And I think we saw this from the response from the comments of the release of the trailer for Intergalactic. Most gamers are like, what is this trash? Remember seeing that presentation where we would finally release the trailer. I saw the ball ahead. I was like, oh, this is Naughty Dog. This is their next woke trash that they're putting out there. And I think that's how gamers are looking at the situation. It kind of just shows you the non-gamer mindset is pervasive in the video gaming industry. It has taken over some parts of the gaming industry. I think we're seeing this reflective in AAA titles like Intergalactic. And I think that arrogance is an epidemic now. This isn't isolated. Tati's attitude reflects a broader problem. Non-gamers, actors, consultants, executives infiltrating the gaming industry, treating core audiences like idiots. They think slapping legacy on something guarantees sales, when that in actuality is the opposite of what we've been seeing in the gaming industry these past few years. It doesn't matter if you have legacy on the title, gamers might just ignore the property. Remember Sweet Baby and consultants pushing DEI agendas all over the gaming industry, where most of their titles are now massive failures, and even the successful titles are failures. Spider-Man 2 sold 10 million copies, but it didn't even reach the 25 million copies of the first one. It's the same thing with Alan Wake 2. It barely reached 1 million copies, and it's not doing any better. I think this is a situation that we're seeing play out in the gaming industry, where these titles, these legacy titles, are not worth the weight in gold anymore because gamers are under suspicion that this content is not made for them anymore. And I think this is reflective of what we're seeing with the consumer base. The consumer base is holding back on purchases. We just saw even reports from Gen Z gamers are holding back even longer on their purchases because they've been burnt out from terrible games that have been coming out. They're waiting until they have real concrete evidence some of these games are good. And I think it comes back to this ideological trend of arrogance from these developers that think they can make anything and gamers will be there waiting to actually praise them for it. And that is just not the case anymore. Gamers are not waiting to praise them for it. You can just look at the titles that have come out these past few years that have been absolute failures. You can look at Kill the Justice League. It sold under 1 million copies and lost $200 million, and it has studio cuts. You see Concord lost over $400 to $500 million and subsequently closed down. We saw this with Battlefield 2042. Sold 4.2 million copies initially, but Battlefield games are almost billion-dollar products, and they were forced to refund the game and put it out on hiatus. Anthem was a complete failure, sold 5 million copies, but cost 100 million plus. Surplus servers are now shut down. Star Wars Battlefront, another game that sold a lot of copies, but failed outright in the long run. And I think this is the thing that we see consistently. A disrespect for content from gamers. And I think this comes down to the things that they put in the games themselves. We see this with a lack of respect for stories that have happened with Naughty Dog and The Last of Us Part 2 specifically. Last of Us 2 was pretty much an harbinger of the disaster that we're going to see in the future of gaming, where it became something that gamers now look back on and remember like, okay, there were all the signs of a terrible game and property that was not going to respect any of the content that came before it. And I think it reflected that with the sales that came out, the story had disrespect for the initial characters, Joel and anyone else, to try to make Abby a hero. Gamers just felt like it was a manipulative trend, pacing issues where it was just too long and it just prioritized characters no one cared about. And the response by the devs were dismissive, where they didn't care. They manipulated trailers, trying to get you to play the game, and it resulted in a low score where it was 5.8 on Metacritic, and death threats ensued. It succeeded commercially initially, but it never really gained the numbers that The Last of Us 1 had ever reached. You can look at the HBO season 2, it reflects the terribleness that we saw in The Last of Us 2. And I think the ratings plummeted at the same rate once Joel was gone. Viewership went down 40% and Rotten Tomatoes went down to 65%. It was the arrogance of the developers that assume fans will be there for their terrible narrative. And I think this is the thing that we're seeing play out in real time with content that is related to these companies, where they're still playing to an audience of no one that doesn't respect the content they're going to put out there. I think that's what we're seeing with Intergalactic. They haven't really noticed yet because the previous games were big enough to have some small successes, but it was a sign of the times that you got 50% of your audience back for The Last of Us. You got 50% of your audience back for Spider-Man 2. That's a large decline. If it was only got 80%, I would say, okay, you have a chance. It's reasonable. You're not going to get everyone back, but you lost 50% of your audience. You think you're going to start a new IP and get more of that audience back? That's not going to happen, especially when you're making design choices that do not have the gamers in mind. And I think this is the thing that we're seeing. They're expecting gamers to play the fool again for them, but I doubt that's going to be the case. It seems like the developers are going to be the fools this time. And I think that is going to be something funny for us to see, where they're going to look at the numbers for this game and Naughty Dog is going to be in serious trouble. Sony may have to make some changes with the studio that has been long cherished, and maybe Neil Druckmann's seat and time as head of studio might be short-lived. But that's just my 2 cents. Arrogance is the downfall of man, and it seems like woman and progressive non-binaries. But that's just my thought. You tell me what you think about the situation. Like to hear what you have to say. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.